Yeah, I think that, I mean, you're right about the Commissioner. In an ideal world, the Commissioner is there for the European interest. I can tell you that in many cases, the Commissioners look over their shoulder and to see what's important in their country. If you look at Mr. Verheugen, you know he's currently an important Vice President. Unfortunately, he turned himself a bit into a laughingstock in recent months. But he is looking over his shoulder to see what Berlin wants. And in many ways, he was the Pudel des Kanzlers. If there are other examples, I mean, a French commissioner going straight against the interest of France would be unheard of. So I think you idealize the current commissioners. They are there to look at a sort of a general European interest, the compromise which is achieved in the Commission. But in the infighting process in the Commission, many of them strongly defend interests which are strongly felt in the member states. And in particular, looking at Germany, Britain, France, many big countries, Spain and Poland, these commissioners will not be allowed to go against a major interest of their country, and they will strongly defend that interest. It's perhaps, in many cases, commissions of smaller countries that tend to be looking for a consensual process and a compromise. But I have to tell you that my experience in the Commission was that with every commissioner it's about 50-50. He is 50% European, and he's 50% representing the country he knows best. So in this way, of course he will never say this in the open, but that's what happens in daily policy making. Now you say you do not need all these elections. Why should we have these elections? Just to point to people we don't know, and the less we know about them, the better it is. Well, that's what we have been trying to do for a long time, and that's where all these referenda go wrong, and we lose them. Because we try to keep it anonymous and we avoid personalizing it. And I think Europe is ready for direct elections of its leaders, because in the world they are seen as representatives of Europe. And I think Europeans should relate to these leaders, even if they are from a different country. That's what Europe is all about. So I am strongly in favor of a direct elections of some of these officials, or high officials as they are now, and turn them into political figures. I don't see the comparison with Switzerland. I think it took Switzerland many hundred years to develop this system. And it is still one nation, and we are, whatever you like it or not, the European Union is a collection of different nation states. The only countries that not really, a country that's not really a nation is Belgium. And Belgium always looked at ways to have Belgian problems solved in Europe, which is not always working. So I'm in favor of European democracy on that level.
Thank you, Mr. Eppink. A few days ago, I was told by or given in the Commission that it agrees that the Commission and the European Council are seen as losers of the last intergovernmental process in the new Treaty of Lisbon, whereas the European Parliament and the European Council are seen as winners. For example, the clause that which is scratched from the constitutional treaty that competition is free and undistorted, which is up to interpretation of the European Court, of course. Do you agree with this sentence that although you have been working for a long time in the European Commission, its power will be diminished by the increased powers of the European Council, with its president, with its competences, non-foreign minister? And but if so, will this treaty also be ratified? Can you give us a visionary view here? Thank you.
I think that this treaty will be ratified this time, and that it will be the ratification procedure will be ready in 2009. So some of the new elements can be introduced. I think we should not underestimate, in what you're saying, the institutional change of the President of Europe. So the President of Europe will chair the European councils. But in fact, he will become the figurehead of Europe, since the power has shifted from the European Commission to the Council. And since the feature of the President of Europe is going to be there, he's going to represent Europe. And the Commission and the President of the Commission will be reduced to a sort of secretariat. In the past 50 years, we had a sort of a communitarian system, which had a certain balance of power between the Commission, the Council, and the Parliament. And what I'm seeing now is that the center of this power is shifting to the Council, since the President of Europe will assume tasks. He will represent Europe in the world. He will chair the European Councils. The Prime Ministers will be his friends. And he will speak on behalf of Europe, and then he will tell the President of the Commission what to do. Because the President of the Commission, he has the Mandarins and he has the money. But he will not have the real power anymore, since the government leaders will regard the President of Europe as the first figurehead of the two. And the President of the Commission will be in second position. And he will be asked to carry out the wishes of the European Council. So I think, and some people are not aware of this, that this treaty will have an important impact on the constitutional and the institutional framework in Brussels, and it will certainly reduce the position of the President of the European Commission. Now, in the current situation, there will be a deal, because Mr. Blair is mentioned as the President of Europe, and Mr. Barroso wants to succeed himself. Now, Mr. Blair is from a big member state. Mr. Barroso is from a small member state. Mr. Blair is a socialist. At least as far as I know, he's a member of the British Labour Party. I've not been informed about any change in that status, at least. And Mr. Barroso is, although he's a former Maoist, he is at least conservative Christian Democrat. So you see, all these balances will be taken into account, and the Council of Europe will, the European Council will appoint Mr. Blair as a president, and Mr. Barroso as the Commission president, and Mr. Barroso will be very happy about it, because he can stay for another 5 years. But his position will be reduced. He will take that for granted for the other 5 years. But on the long run, the President of the Commission will be second in command and not first in command anymore. So on the long term, there is really a change. But since Mr. Barroso can succeed himself, he will agree to the terms that have been made by the European Council. So you're perfectly right. The Commission I think, is one of the losers of the treaty. But they will find out only later. Yes. Oh.
Mr. Eppink, first of all, thank you for a very insightful lecture. I